Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 or PF2. I love PF2. And as a longtime gamer of D&D and a lot of other systems, mostly old systems, I want to bring stuff to you that I find along the way that is awesome or just interesting. And so we're going over all the ancestries in the player core 2 today. Not all of them have changed much, but all of them have a little bit of change. So we may as well go through it and just so you guys know what to be aware of for, changing your ancestries if you need to, or whatever. I want to point out at the beginning of this that it's been brought to my attention that the Paizo staff has said and reiterated that if you don't see a feat or something in one of the books, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore. It just means that it didn't originally come out in that book, so they're having it come out in a later book. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily getting back Dragon Breath for Kobolds, but it does mean that there might be more Duskwalker and Dhampir stuff later. So we'll just have to wait, and until then, just use the old stuff, because you're supposed to be able to. Catfolk. I love Catfolk, because I love cats, but they're like all about luck. Alright, let's see what they changed. So first level, Catnap. They changed how long the temporary hit points last. It's no longer 10 minutes after you take a 10-minute nap, making it virtually useless. The temporary hit points now last for an hour. It's at least easier to plan for. I think this is great. It's a simple change, but it makes things more useful. Quality of life. Lucky Break, level 5 ancestry feat. They changed it so that you can trigger Cat's Luck when you fail or critically fail a Fortitude saving throw, Will saving throw, or as it was before, acrobatics check, athletics check, in addition to the original reflex saving throws. You can still only use it once per day, but they opened it up to allow for all the saving throws to be used. That's great. Good change for Lucky Break. Well Groomed, 5th level feat. They gave you an additional +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against diseases. And Well Groomed, they changed from a 9th level feat to a 5th level feat and gave you an additional +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against diseases. So they made it cheaper to get, basically, earlier to get, and had it do more. And they've added wording into a lot of feats that are like this. I'm just going to read this section so you know that it applies to all of the feats that are similar. If you roll a success on a saving throw against a disease, you get a critical success instead. So that's Well Groomed. If you have a different ability that would improve the save in this way, such as the Battle Hardened Fighter class feature, if you roll a critical failure on the save, you get a failure instead. That last sentence has been added to all of the feats that work like Well Groomed. So cool. I'm glad. And that's all they changed for Catfolk. I just want to point out a feat that I love about Catfolk is Caterwaul. Once per day, an ally within 30 feet would be reduced to 0 hit points but not immediately killed. You can call them back from that state. They remain at 1 hit point. Their wounded condition still increases by 1 as though they had been dying and recovered. Yes, the mechanics have been done before. I just love that it's a caterwaul. You give a daring yowl. Anybody who has ever stepped on a cat's tail has heard that, and I believe that could bring you back from the brink of death. It is so freaking startling. It makes sense for a catfolk to have it. Alright, next ancestry. Now we're on to Hobgoblins. Hobgoblins, 1st level Alchemical Scholar. It was changed by giving you the Alchemical Crafting feat, because apparently it's stupid to not have the Alchemical Crafting feat if you can craft alchemical items. Go figure. Cantorian Reinforcement, level 1 feat. It has been changed to add if you roll a success on a saving throw against a disease or poison, you get a critical success instead. Cool. It's just better. Alright, they changed Leech Clipper for Hobgoblins to Leech Clip and changed the wording slightly. So previously it had said, if you critically hit a foe with a weapon from the flail weapon group, you can wrap the weapon around the target's legs and then drop it, causing the foe to take a -10-foot circumstance penalty to their speeds until they or their allies disentangle the weapon, which takes a total of 2 interact actions. Leech Clip says, make a melee strike with a weapon from the flail group. On a hit, the target takes a 10-foot status penalty to its speed, or 15-foot status penalty on a critical hit. The penalty lasts for 1 round. So it no longer takes 2 interact actions to remove, but you don't drop your weapon, and it takes 2 actions to do. It's a special maneuver. It doesn't have the... Oh, that's interesting. It doesn't have the attack trait, but it's a melee strike, so it should be an attack. I think it's better overall, and I like that you don't have to drop your weapon. The last change that Hobgoblins got was 17th level Cantorian Restoration. It's no longer the Breath of Life spell. It's you prevent the creature from dying and restore 6d8 plus Constitution modifier hit points to it, which is the same thing the spell does. And it's a Hobgoblin Healing Vitality effect. It's not a spell. That's the only difference. Alright. Next is Kholos, or Gnolls. Hyena peoples. Okay. First level. New feat, Ask the Bones. Free action. Frequency once per day. You keep the bone of an ancestor or a friend to call upon for advice. Attempt to recall knowledge. If the bones belonged to a person particularly knowledgeable on the subject, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your check. That's neat. And that's very fitting, like bone-gnawing hyena people. Next new feat, 5th level, Absorb Strength. 1 action. It says frequency once per hour. Requirements, you are adjacent to an enemy's corpse who has been dead for no longer than 1 minute. I love that this exists. You consume a piece of your enemy, absorbing their strength. You gain temporary hit points equal to the enemy's level that lasts for 1 minute. Hell yes! Scavengers get a scavenging ability. Great. Next new feat. Level 5, Rabid Sprint. 2 actions, it's a flourish. Prerequisites, Dog Kholo Heritage. Requirements, you have both your hands free. You run on all fours as fast as you can, stride 3 times. It's great for maneuverability in combat. It's as simple as that. You're just quicker, because you're a doggy. Next new feat, level 5, Affliction Resistance. Your diet has strengthened you against diseases and poisons. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against diseases and poisons. If you roll a success on a saving throw against a disease or poison, you get a critical success instead. And as I read previously, if you have a different ability that would improve the save in this way, such as the Battle-Hardened Fighter class feature, if you roll a critical failure on the save, you get a failure instead. So if you're both a Catfolk and a Kholo, this applies. Yeah. Cat hyena. And the completionist in me, the anal retentive part of me, was very happy with this next feat existing just for the balance of terms. So there was right hand blood as a Gnoll feat, but no left hand blood. Finally there's left hand blood. So 1 action, level 5 feat, frequency once per hour. It's said that the flesh of the right side of the hyena can heal diseases, but that the flesh of the left side is deadly and poisonous. You deal 1 slashing damage to yourself to poison a weapon you are holding. If you hit with the weapon and deal damage, the target also takes 1d4 persistent poison damage. The poison on your weapon becomes inert after you hit or at the end of your next turn, whichever comes first. Obviously, this is a great, useful feat. And they have both right hands and left hands now. That's good. Next new feat, level 9, Ambush Hunter. You are always searching for the perfect opportunity to ambush your enemies. You can perform the scout exploration activity at the same time as the avoid notice exploration activity. Neat. So you can stealthily scout. Cool. Another new Kholo Gnoll Hyena person trait. Feat. 13th level, Ancestors Rage. You transform into an enormous otherworldly hyena. You can cast animal form, canine form only once per day as a 5th rank occult innate spell. Awesome. Next new feat, 13, Bonekeeper's Bane. Whenever an enemy starts its turn adjacent to you, it must attempt a will saving throw against your class DC or spell DC, whichever is highest. On a failure, the enemy takes a -1 status penalty to attack rolls and skill checks for as long as it remains adjacent to you. Regardless of the result of its save, the creature is then temporarily immune to Bonekeeper's Bane for 24 hours. So it's only useful once per creature, but it's passive. It's a great defensive ability, and it can even help protect your friends if they're near you. This is cool. Next new feat, level 17, First to Strike, First to Fall. Whenever you successfully strike a creature that has not acted in the first round of combat, that creature is off guard until the end of your next turn. If that creature is reduced to 0 hit points before the end of your next turn, you and all allies within 30 feet of the creature become quickened until the end of your next turn. You can use the extra action only to step, stride, or strike. That's awesome. I'm glad they have some high level feats that are really cool. Next new feat, level 17, Impaling Bone. Once per day, you can cast Impaling Spike as a 7th rank innate occult spell, except the spike is made of bone instead of cold iron. The bone from the spell has the effects of the Ghost Touch property rune and can immobilize incorporeal creatures as if they were corporeal. This is neat. I like that they're leaning into the spiritual, ancestral side of the magic they have in connection with bones and corpses. Next new feat, level 17, Legendary Laugh. Prerequisites, Laughing Kholo. Your laughter echoes in the minds of your enemies. You can demoralize creatures up to 60 feet away. Additionally, whenever you successfully demoralize a creature, it takes 3d8 mental damage, or 6d8 mental damage on a critical success. That's fucked up and awesome. But I kind of get that. Like, somebody is like mocking you, and then they start giggling crazily like a hyena. That's disturbing. Great, the Kholo made out like bandits. This is nice. New Kobold feats. I know I bitched about the Kobolds being, kind of mugged in a dark alley, but they did get new feats. Level 9 is the first one, Evolved Spellhorn. Prerequisites, Spellhorn Kobold Heritage. Your inborn arcane power grows. Choose one common first rank arcane spell and one common second rank arcane spell. You can cast each of these spells once per day as arcane innate spells. They essentially had the same thing before, but it's not tied to a specific dragon anymore, so you don't have restrictions on what kind of spell you can take. Okay, so I know that's kind of cheating. It's not really new, but it's a rework. But the next feat is completely new. Level 9, Fleeing Shriek. 2 actions. Auditory Kobold Sonic. Frequency once per hour. You let out an ear-piercing screech. Each creature in a 10-foot emanation takes 5d6 sonic damage with a basic fortitude saving throw against the higher of your class DC or spell DC. You then stride, and this movement doesn't trigger reactions from any creature that failed or critically failed its saving throw. At 11th level and every 2 levels thereafter, the damage increases by 1d6. It's a nice get out of the situation quickly while dealing some damage. I think it's worth taking. Yeah. It's usable. Next feat that's new, level 9, Winglet Flight. This is a rework of Flight, and I think that this trend, the way it's worded, is going to hold true into the future. It's very similar to the Awakened Animal Winged Ancestry. I'll read it to you. So it takes 1 action, prerequisites, winglets, which is still the same feat it was before, frequency once per round. Intense use and exercise have made your winglets more powerful. You fly with that action. If you don't normally have a fly speed, you gain a fly speed of 20 feet for this movement. If you aren't on solid ground at the end of this movement, you fall. Much like the Awakened Animal Ancestry, and like the Dragon Blood Versatile Heritage. It's good, it's useful, especially if you're repositioning, or, I don't know, I wish you could start with it, because it'd be cool for backstory. But okay, it's fine, it's good, it's useful. Next new feat, level 13, Resplendent Spellhorn. Prerequisites, Evolved Spellhorn. Your magic continues to flourish. Choose 1 common 3rd rank arcane spell and 1 common 4th rank arcane spell. You can cast each of these spells once per day as arcane innate spells. Again, like before, there were just restrictions that they removed. Next new feat, level 13, Tumbling Diversion. 1 action, prerequisites, expert in acrobatics and deception. Attempt to tumble through an opponent's space. If you succeed or critically succeed and don't end your movement adjacent to that opponent, you can attempt to create a diversion to distract that opponent. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to the deception check, or +2 if you critically succeeded at the acrobatics check to tumble through, to create a diversion. If you succeed or critically succeed to create a diversion, you become hidden to only the creature whose space you tumbled through. So, like, you tumble through and disappear. That's neat. I like that. That's a really cool little tricky ability. Next new feat, level 17, Benefactor's Majesty. 1 action. This has the healing and visual traits. Frequency once per day, you tap into the grandeur of your Warren's Benefactor. You gain temporary hit points equal to your level, which last for 1 minute. In addition, you can immediately attempt a flat check to remove each type of persistent damage you have. Nice! Finally, until the start of your next turn, any creature targeting you with a harmful attack, spell, or ability must first succeed at a DC 11 flat check, or the action is disrupted as the creature avoids setting eyes upon your majesty. Alright, that's neat. That's cool. I'm glad that they gave kobolds some of their glory back. That's cool. That's a really fun feat. I love that it can help you with any and all persistent damage you have, and you gain temporary hit points. That's just a really good one-action, 17th level feat. Lizardfolk Iruxi Ancestry feats. First level, Bone Magic. I know it's not new, but they added a little thingy here. So instead of choosing just from the primal spell list, you can choose one cantrip from either the occult spell list or the primal spell list. Makes sense to me. It's mysterious ancestral magic. Iruxi, like all of the sharp claws, the fangs, the tail, they've just been made more concise into one feat. Iruxi Armaments, level 1 feat. 5th level in Venom Fangs, they changed one thing about the poison. It's no longer just a d6 poison damage, it's a d6 persistent poison damage, which is awesome. Shed Tail, they improved. Instead of taking a week to get your tail back, it's a day. Much better. Thank you. This level 5 feat they modified. Swift Swimmer. You gain a swim speed of 15 feet. Special. If you have the Wetlander Lizardfolk Heritage, your swim speed instead increases to 25 feet. It used to be just for the Wetlander Lizardfolk Heritage, and it increased their speed. Now it can give any Lizardfolk a swim speed, which makes total fucking sense. They live in swamps. It wouldn't necessarily just be that one heritage. Cool. I like it a lot. I like movement abilities. Next new feat, Hone Claws. Level 9. One action. Prerequisites, Iruxi Armaments for claws. Frequency once per hour. You grind or gnaw a particularly wicked edge onto your claws. The next claw strike you hit and deal damage with deals an additional 1d6 bleed damage. You cannot have more than one instance of Hone Claws active at a time. Cool. It's just a little bit of extra damage. That's not persistent bleed damage, is it? It's just 1d6 bleeding damage? Okay. It doesn't say persistent, so it's not persistent. And that is all for the Lizardfolk Iruxi. And now on to the Ratfolk Ysoki. Something that I'm really happy about that the Ratfolk get is sharp teeth as base. All Ratfolk have this now. Your prominent incisors offer an alternative to the fists other humanoids bring to a fight. You have a Jaws unarmed attack that deals 1d4 piercing damage, is in the brawling group, and has the agile and finesse traits. Makes perfect sense. New feat, level 1, Vicious Incisors. Your Jaws unarmed attack deals 1d6 piercing damage instead of 1d4 and gains the Backstabber trait. You can file down your teeth and regrow them later on, enabling you to select this feat at any level and to retrain into and out of this feat. It makes perfect sense as well. Ratfolk, they're rats. They grow their teeth continuously. Like, they have to try to make them shorter, or they cause problems for themselves. So this makes perfect sense. I'm glad this exists. Last new feat, 17th level, Call the Swarm. 3 actions. Prerequisites, Rat Speak. Frequency once per day. You give a shrill whistle and point, and a massive swarm of rats pours forth from the surrounding terrain to fill a 30-foot burst within 120 feet. The rats scurry over the ground and climb up walls and surfaces, biting and clawing as they deal 6d8 piercing damage to all enemies in the area. The rats continue to swarm in the area for the next minute, dealing 3d8 piercing damage to any enemy that ends its turn in the area and transforming the area into difficult terrain, though the rats allow you and your allies to pass normally. I love that last part. You can dismiss the effect. This is freaking cool. It doesn't require an action to sustain it. It's just, you're a rat folk, so you got lots of rats. This is awesome. Now I want to make a rat folk vampire. And that's all for the rat folk. Besides that cool picture. Rat folk alchemist. Picturing them pulling like elixirs, bombs out of their cheeks. That might be a bad way to store them. And now the Tengu. The first feat that has been changed is One-Toed Hop. It's level 1 now instead of level 5. That's it. Takes an action. It's the same feat. Scavenger's Search has been like completely reworked. It's the same level, but I'm going to read the original and then the new one. So Scavenger's Search. Each time you use the seek action to search for objects, including secret doors and hazards. You can search for objects in your choice of a 10-foot emanation around you or an adjacent 10-foot by 10-foot area rather than a single adjacent 10-foot by 10-foot area. Like, it didn't really do a lot, and it's kind of hard to understand. So now what it does is, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to locate objects, including secret doors and hazards, you search for within 30 feet with a seek action. It's just a bonus, which seems to make so much more sense. It's great. And it's much more easy to understand and figure out. I just said that, basically. Sense and understand and figure out. You have to use your brain and your mind and your head. Here's a new feat for you. Level 5, Soaring Flight, 1 action, prerequisites, Skyborn Tengu Heritage, frequency once per round. You fly with that 1 action. If you don't normally have a fly speed, you gain a fly speed of 20 feet for this movement. If you aren't on solid ground at the end of this movement, you fall. Much like the other Ancestry flying abilities that we've been going over. Finally, 5th level birds can fly. It's not just, like, for a minute. Next new feat, level 9, Soaring Form, prerequisites, Soaring Flight. You have a fly speed of 20 feet at all times. Like the dragon. Or dragon blood. Done with Tengu, on to the last ancestry that we're going to go over. It's the once known as Grippli Tripkee. Frog people. First new feat for the Tripkee, Croak Talker. Level 1 feat. You can communicate with the simplest of frogs and other similar creatures using long-winded croaks. You can ask questions I'll receive answers from and use the diplomacy skill with animals that are amphibians. Most amphibians have the amphibious trait. I like that they point that out for people too who just don't know or don't think about it. And I'm glad this makes sense. This is here now. They have done so many things in this book for the Tripkee that just make them more froggy. Great, they're frogs. Makes sense. Next new feat, level 1, Terrifying Croak. 1 action. Prerequisites, trained in intimidation. You release a haunting croak that reminds those around you of their fears. Attempt an intimidation check to demoralize a creature within 30 feet. You do not take a penalty to this check for not speaking a language. If the check is successful, the target cannot reduce their frightened condition below 1 for 1 round. That's great. That's a really cool benefit. For first level, that's a good feat. I laugh, but no, sometimes if you've heard like a croak from like in the night somewhere and it's a large frog, it has this hollow, dark sound to it. It is creepy. So I see that. 5th level new feat, Fantastic Leaps. Your leaps seem to defy gravity as you soar through the air in a single bound. When leaping, increase the maximum distance you can leap horizontally by 10 feet and the maximum distance you can leap vertically by 5 feet. 'Cause you're a frog. Awesome. Next new feat, level 5, Prodigious Climber. Your natural climbing ability and technique has made you a potent climber. You gain a climb speed of 10 feet. Special. If you have the Sticky Toe Tripkee Heritage, you instead gain a climb speed of 20 feet. 'Cause sticky toes are sticky. My favorite new feat for the Tripkee, of course it is, level 5, Vomit Stomach. It's a reaction. Trigger, you gain the sickened condition or fail a saving throw against an ingested poison. Makes sense. Frequency, once per day. In dire circumstances, you can vomit out your stomach to expel toxins. This is a real thing that some frogs do. Reduce your sickened condition. Oh, and what is it? Camels do something really similar. Reduce your sickened condition by 2 and immediately attempt a saving throw with a +2 circumstance bonus against any ingested poisons you have been exposed to within the last minute. You become off guard for 1 round as your exposed stomach makes you especially vulnerable to attacks. That makes sense. Oh, so gross. Talk about adding flavor to your build. I really like the new feats for the Tripkee. Like, this actually makes me want to make a Tripkee. I never have wanted to before. There just weren't enough interesting selections for Ancestry feats. Now there's a lot more that are very froggy, very swampy. Next new feat, level 9, Moisture Bath. 1 action, Manipulate, trait. Frequency once per day. Your moist skin is especially resistant to damage from temperature-altering effects. Attempt a DC 10 flat check. On a success, you recover from any ongoing persistent fire and persistent cold damage. Additionally, you gain fire and cold resistance equal to half your level for 1 minute. I don't think you have to attempt the flat check to gain the resistance. It's phrased separately. So no matter what, you get the resistance to half your level for a minute, and you can stop ongoing persistent fire or cold damage. You just moisten yourself however that has to happen. It's 1 action moisture bath. Oh, the froggy flavor doesn't stop. Next new feat, level 13, Hop Up. It's a free action. Trigger. You lose the unconscious condition. Your frog-like agility awakens as soon as you do. You stand. This movement doesn't trigger reactions. That's awesome. I like that. Next and last new feat, 17th level, Unbound Leaper. Your jumping prowess is unmatched. You can leap up to 30 feet in any direction without touching the ground and without requiring an athletics check. When doing so, you must land on a space of solid ground within 30 feet of you, or else you fall after using your next action. You can exceed your normal speed while leaping. Special if you have the Fantastic Leaps feat, the total distance you can leap horizontally is 40 feet, and the total distance you can leap vertically is 35 feet. I think you should also be able to, like, leap and then land on a tree if you have the climbing ability. That kind of thing. I don't think it has to be solid ground, but I guess that's implied. You just have to, like, land somewhere solid wherever you could actually land normally. Go, Moist Froggy! That's really neat. I actually like this ancestry now. I didn't dislike it before, but I was just neutral. Just, yeah, there's frogs, there's a Grippli. Maybe if I need something that's, like, specifically having their abilities to, like, glide, which wasn't mentioned here, but it was originally in the Mwangi Expanse, so it's probably just going to be reiterated later. Don't assume it's not going to be okay. And that's all of the new and the altered ancestry feats that weren't a versatile heritage feat. Of course, they're not, because they're ancestry feats. Anyway, thank you for letting me borrow your eyes and ears, and thank you for stopping by, especially if you're a patron. Thank you for helping me out every month. And Loot says, hi. I've had the request, so we're going to make a Loot purring video. I hope you guys like it. I know it's weird, but some people wanted it, so we're gonna. It's just kitty purring. If you want to see the remainder of the Player 2 core coverage that you haven't seen yet, playlist is there. If you want to go back and see the Howl of the Wild coverage, it's there. There's other stuff on the channel too, but there's a lot of videos in Howl of the Wild, so maybe you missed something. It's useful stuff. I hope this video was useful to you. Thank you very much for your time.